This is a video that you're not going to see every day that I'm going to do on the 4 train stations in Utah that are served by Amtrak, by the California Zephyr train that runs between Chicago and then Denver and Salt Lake City and then on to the San Francisco Bay Area. And it runs one time a day in each direction, eastbound and westbound. And coming from Colorado, the last stop in Colorado is Grand Junction, and then the first stop in Utah is Green River, and then Helper, then Provo, Utah, and then Salt Lake City. And then the train goes west through Nevada, where the first stop is Elko, Nevada. So these are the time frames of when the train stops at the stations westbound and the other way eastbound once per day. And the train runs on time about 33% of the time, a little bit more, according to 2021 figures. And the towns in the south have actually like the best times. They're the 2 smaller towns, Green River and Helper, Utah. And then as you get north up to Provo and Salt Lake City, the times are less convenient, especially Salt Lake City. You can see here, if you're going westbound towards the San Francisco Bay Area, you can only catch a train at 11:05. It leaves at 11:30 at night. And then going eastbound, you got to get up really early because the train leaves at 3:30 in the morning, headed east. So those are some pretty tough times to catch a train. But the first station we're going to look at, we're going to go from south to north. Green River actually has the best times, so it's a very doable 6 p.m. train going westbound or up to Salt Lake City from Green River. And then in the morning, it's an 8 a.m. time. So that's pretty good time. So let's look at Green River a little. Here's where it is, southernmost station of the 4 stations in Utah. And this is a Union Pacific building. I'm not sure whether it was ever used as a station house, and I don't know whether they're going to use it as a station house in the future. For the 2 stations in the south, Green River and Helper, they've really done a lot of fixing up of the stations, which I'll show you in pictures and in the video that I'll show after each station. So right now that part is fenced off, but maybe they'll open it up as a station house. Don't know. But they've also built a shelter here at the end of the platform. You can see the platform is brand new. This is looking east towards Colorado and looking west, and the train will go north towards Helper, which is the next stop. So it's still fenced off, but you can see everything's brand new. And they've got a handicapped accessible ramp and handicapped parking spaces. I think they're going to pave the parking lot. That was one thing that struck us when we drove in. We didn't even know if we were supposed to come in here because it was so rough going over some other train tracks to get to the station. So it was in a state of construction, and there's a construction trailer there. So maybe that's finished by now. This was taken in May of 2023. And you can see some of the scenery in the distance, the high mesas, part of the Colorado Plateau. And you can see a little bit of what remains of downtown Green River. And the downtown is interesting because there's just a few isolated buildings. Like there used to be more buildings, but the ones in between, the ones that are still standing, are no longer there. So it's an interesting place to photograph. And when I was there was another person who was taking pictures of some of these buildings. So it's interesting. And this is a old pizza place that looks like it hasn't been open in a long time. And this building is occupied, older. And this is a former bank building that is now, it was selling t-shirts. I don't even know if it's doing that anymore, but at least this still stands. So just to show you what Green River has going for it, it's kind of a desolate place by itself, but it's close, relatively close to a couple of the national parks that Utah is known for, the Big 5 national parks, and it's closest to Arches National Park and Canyonlands National Park, and then right just south of Arches is the town of Moab. And the train tracks do go down to Moab, but there's no passenger train service, regular service that goes there. So if you wanted to go carless, you could take a train to Green River. There's no place to rent a car when you get to Green River. You have to get like either a shuttle to come and get you from one of the hotel motels down in Moab, or get an Uber or a Lyft, which might cost you $70, $80, $90, $100 one way for a car. So maybe if you had a couple of people, you could split the cost. So that's the only possibility. So it's got a lot of potential, though, being so close to these national parks. So let me show you some video of Green River. I had to see the Green River, Utah station for myself here for Amtrak. We had to drive over these rough tracks to get here. We weren't sure that this is where you can park. And we stopped at a Love's truck stop, and I asked the lady where the station was. And she told me at the end of Broadway here. In Green River, Utah. And she said they tore down the old depot and they just built this new shelter. And it looks like it's brand new. And I'll put on the screen when the trains come here. This is looking looking east towards Grand Junction, Colorado is the next stop. So this is the first stop in Utah. And they've got a full-length platform here. Look how brand new this is. But half of it's still fenced off. Maybe they're still working on something. Maybe they're gonna make this more into a full-fledged station house, like maybe it once was. I don't know what they tore down. I'll see if there's any old pictures of what was here. But this looks like an old station house. And the next stop west and north is Helper, Utah, which the pictures I saw of that were pretty rough. Looks like they're going to put some signage there. Another Green River, Utah sign. And that is it. Green River, Utah, Amtrak station in southeastern Utah. So I guess that's a little construction trailer. And the lady at the Love's said that the train rarely runs on time. But I wasn't expecting to see a train this hour of the day. That against that wall of that storefront over there, it says you are here in the epicenter of Green River. The second station in town I'm going to show you is the town of Helper, which is an unusual name. I'll get into how it has that name, but I found it to be the surprise of the four. It was really a pleasant surprise. So just to go back to the timetable, trains arrive here at a pretty reasonable time, going westbound at 7:20 in the evening, and then going eastbound 6:37 in the morning. Not too bad. And this is the picture I would usually see when I was looking up Helper on various websites, and it looked kind of rough to me. It didn't look very customer friendly, very inviting. It's a Union Pacific type office building for a yard, but it actually isn't that bad. And they've just done, just like they have in Green River, they've done new station platforms with bright yellow, brand new platform edge rubbing strips, warning strips, and you can see the mountains to the north here, part of the Wasatch Range. And the reason the town gets its name is from Helper, you have to go up over a mountain range and then back down to get to Salt Lake City. So there are extra engines that they use to help push a train over the ridge line. And they don't need it, I'm pretty sure, for Amtrak trains, but for these big long freight trains that are 100 cars or more long, they need extra help. So they get those from these helper engines, and that's how the town gets its name. And here is a topographic map just to show you where Helper is. It's located in Carbon County, and there used to be a lot of coal mining in this area, and maybe there still is, but it used to be a big deal. So these hills are rich with coal. And to give you a bigger picture, so Helper's on one side of the Wasatch Front Range, and then to get to the next town, North Provo, you go from Helper up to what's called Soldier Summit, and then back down to the valley below. And we drove this route after we went through Helper, and there's a lot of storm clouds in the pictures I'm going to be showing you and in the video after that. And we encountered a lot of rain going through these mountains. I have a feeling it rains a lot there. And you're going at pretty high speeds, and you're going around curves and down hills, and you've got trucks behind you. So it can be kind of a hairy drive, but people were good, including the truck drivers. They could see from my out-of-state plates that I wasn't from Utah, and nobody rushed up on me from behind, so it was good. And then going further back just shows you where Helper is in relationship to Green River, and then so it's halfway between Green River and Provo. And what I found interesting, not only about the station, but the town was a really interesting place. It looks like an old Western town that has what looks like a touristy type feel to it, but it isn't really touristy, I don't think. I don't know, maybe people from Utah go here to experience a little bit of what the Wild West maybe used to be like, but I don't think that it's overwhelmingly so. I just think this is an old town with old buildings, mostly preserved. I don't know. I think it's kind of a hidden gem. So much so that I was looking at what is available on Zillow for houses in this area. Unfortunately, that's where the storybook story ends. It doesn't look like there's that much in the way of cute Victorian housing or anything to go along with the downtown. But if you want to buy land and build your estate, you can do that. There's a lot of land available. So this just shows you various shots of the downtown. This is looking north on the street. I guess it's called Main Street, runs parallel to the train tracks. And they have an old theater there. And maybe they have concerts there at the Strand. And you can't really read it, but the sign says the Helper Emporium. Now, I don't think it's open, but it was open. Could be open again. And I just thought it was really a cool look. Very understated, but cool. And this was just an interesting flower box arrangement on the street. I'm not saying all the storefronts have stores in them, but it's interesting to look at. And look at this old hotel where rooms used to be 50 cents and up, and you can get an orange crush for 5 cents. The Lincoln Hotel, formerly the Elyr Hotel. And is it currently a hotel? I don't know. You might look it up. And look at this place right next to the Lincoln Hotel. Little diner type place. I don't know if that was open, but we were driving up the street and I was seeing a lot of things that were really interesting to me. And this is their town auditorium, civic auditorium. Looks like a Art Deco, Art Moderne type building. And here's a huge coal miner standing outside. Just looked interesting. There was something unique about this place. And I couldn't get enough of it. This is looking back as we were leaving town. One more picture. So let me show you more of the station. I'm in the little town of Helper, Utah, with dark biblical clouds in the background. And we're here to look at the train station at Little Helper. So they have kind of a historic little downtown with one big boarded up type building. And it's a Union Pacific Railroad building. just see when they have hours. Station hours are 24 hours. And just like Green River, there was no clear place to park. But also like Green River, they have new handicap parking spaces. So like we're behind the row of stores. And they've had freshly improved paving here, handicapped access ramp. I didn't put my wind slayer on the camera, so it's windy. A lot of tracks here, it's like a yard. And then here's the station platform, also brand new. We're just north of the town of Price, which is a bigger town, but still not that big. I think with the storm clouds over here, really makes it look more dramatic. We're still in the bright sun. It's a long platform. Everything's fixed up. Very new. I think I'd seen pictures of this station and they look pretty rough, but this is a regular train platform. You'd almost expect to see something like this in a suburban train system. New lighting. You still see a construction trailer here. I wonder if they're going to pave any of this area for parking. And I'll look up the ridership figures. I'll put that on the screen. They can't be that great. But this also gives us a chance to look at the surrounding area. Water tower there, rusty. You can see more of the downtown over here. So we're like in central Utah. We're the second station in from Colorado. The last station in western Colorado is Grand Junction, then there's Green River, and now we're in Helper. And the next station north of here that I'll show coming up is Provo, and then Salt Lake City. And those are the 4 stations in Utah. So I'm pretty impressed that they've built this platform the full length. The California Zephyr can be a long train, so they don't have to tell people to go to one end of the train or the other to get off. So we've been in southern Utah where the scenery is very dramatic, and then we went through like a flatter, more deserty area, hardly any vegetation at all. Now it's getting green again. And the scenery is getting more dramatic. So now I'm walking into the wind back south. So here's the lay of the land in Helper, Utah. So let's just go into the station house. Little waiting room here. Open 24 hours in the Union Pacific building. And I'll go out that door. Just looking for a train schedule on the wall here in case people wanted to know what time the train was coming, but I don't see anything. So we'll go out the front door. The bathrooms are open, by the way, and we're perfectly fine. Nope, no train schedule. Just gotta know, you gotta look it up. Alright. Helper, Utah. The third train station in Utah we stopped at on our way to Salt Lake City was Provo. And here are the times at Provo. Not that great. If you want to go westbound, if you want to go up to Salt Lake City on the train, you have to catch a train around 9:30 at night. And it takes an hour and a half to get to Salt Lake City. And if you want to come back the other way from Salt Lake City, you're catching a 3:30 train in the morning and you're getting into Provo at 4:35. That's the time you got to get to the station to go eastbound. And it's weird that its timetable says it's an hour and a half to go from Provo to Salt Lake City, but going the other way, it's only an hour. And there's no real elevation change involved. So I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just a mystery of the schedule. So the scenery at Provo is really nice. This is the Amtrak station in the foreground. It has a small platform, and it's kind of mostly a shelter. It's not really a station. And you can see snow on the peaks in the distance. And the other thing that caught my eye mostly at Provo was there's a separate station for the front runner commuter train station. And these are a couple of trains there looking south or east. And it's a good looking system. It reminded me of the rail runner system in New Mexico that runs between Albuquerque and Santa Fe. And like that system, this system, there were just 3 cars attached to the engine. And they had interesting artwork. And that is what I focused on a lot because the Amtrak station was just kind of a quiet little separate station. And I commented on the video clip coming up, if you're in a wheelchair, you can't really go between the two. You'd have to go back out onto the street and then down the street and then over. There's kind of a uneven pathway in between the two. So it doesn't seem like there's a lot of people going from one system to the other. But given the time of day that the Amtrak trains arrive, there isn't really a lot of intermodality between the intercity train and the commuter train. So let's take a look at Provo. So here I am at the Provo, Utah Amtrak station. Provo is a city that's growing. Show 116,000 population here. Elevation almost a mile high. So this is the Amtrak platform, which is pretty full length, not quite as long as the one at Helper. And we're looking towards the Wasatch Range, or the Wasatch Front. And you see a train there. That's a commuter train that'll go into Salt Lake City and on up to Ogden, Utah, the front runner. And this is the southern terminus. So I heard the engine idling before, and we might see this train pull out of the front runner station, which is, as you can see, it's just a short walk from the Amtrak station. Why they are not one and the same, I don't know. So we're here in Memorial Day weekend. It's the Friday of Memorial Day in late May, and there's still snow on the mountains. We just drove up from the south. We came from Moab in the southeastern part of the state, and temperatures there are getting into the 80s, maybe low 90s. Anyway, when we were driving up, you have to drive up and over the mountains and then down to get here. We encountered heavy rain on a busy curving highway. So it was kind of hairy driving here, but we saw a lot of snow-capped peaks. So I don't know if it ever melts I assume it does at some point, and then almost maybe as soon as it melts, it starts snowing again. I don't know. There's some new development here. So now it's just rocky. So if you wanted to go from Amtrak to the front runner, you would encounter a rough patch. And it looks like they have bi-level cars and high-level platforms, which makes it handicapped accessible. So in New Mexico, between Santa Fe and Albuquerque, you have the Rail Runner commuter train, and here you have the Front Runner train. Let's walk across the street. Low density residential area around, a lot of big box commercial chain restaurant type businesses. This area, people aren't getting on the train, so maybe we'll see it pull out. It's like 2:30 in the afternoon, and they have some funny art here at the Provo station. So it's a 3-car train, bi-level, with an engine. There's another train, be the next one to leave. Also looks like it's a 3-car train. I don't know what they're building here. It's related to the train station or not. Diesel powered, you can hear. Utah Transit Authority. The doors are closing, so it's about ready to pull out. Just to give you a quick view of the area. Provo, Utah, home of Brigham Young University. So one of the main streets here is University Avenue, which we'll look for a restaurant. We're starving. We haven't really eaten today. Door reopened, let another passenger on. Alright, when it pulls out of the station, I'll take that video. Alright, well, a southbound train is coming into the station. And I see people continuing to walk over to the northbound train. So this is a Union Pacific freight train. Station. The gates went back up, so this train might not be leaving for a little bit. This other train seems like it's been creeping up. Maybe it's just my imagination. Anyway, I want to see this train pull out before we leave. Here's a quick look at Provo looking north. Some more snow-capped mountains in the background. Some of the residential area here. As we walk back to the Amtrak station. Now we'll walk back to the Amtrak station here and take one last look back at the front runner. If it comes, it comes. But like the other two stations I've seen so far in Utah at Green River and Helper, they have new platforms. This one's been here a little bit longer, but it's still pretty new. So it's almost like the two different rail lines have different colored ballast or stone underneath the tracks. The gray underneath Amtrak Union Pacific, and a tan stone underneath the Utah Transit Authority tracks that run parallel. Anyway, let's look at Provo, Utah's Amtrak train station. So on our last few days of our trip to Utah, we stayed in Salt Lake City and I went to go look at the train station there. And as I mentioned before, Salt Lake City has really bad times for catching an Amtrak train. If you're going westbound to Reno and the San Francisco Bay Area, your train will be leaving at 11:30 at night. And if you want to catch a train going east, your train will leave at 3:30 in the morning. And Salt Lake City, for a big city, it's kind of reminds me of like Perth, Australia. It's really remote, its location. So your next train station to the west of Salt Lake City is Elko, Nevada, and it's 4.5 hours away. And Elko, Nevada is in the middle of nowhere. So by the time you get to another decent-sized city, Reno, that's 10 hours away by train across the Great Nevada Basin. So it's a remote place. If you go or down to Provo, it's an hour, and then southern Utah is 2 to 3 to 4 hours away. So you are a long ways away from other places. So we stayed at a really nice hotel. I mentioned it later in the video. It's the Grand America Hotel, and this is our view out of one of our upper floor windows as the storm clouds are rolling over. And we could also see mountains the following morning in the distance. This is looking southwest, and there's a lot of new construction, medium density residential, and this is looking towards the train station that I'll be going to. It's in the distance. You can't really make it out here, but it's the general direction. But I'll be taking the TRAX light rail system, so I could walk, but I'm going to take the light rail, and I'll show you that. So here's the light rail. You can just barely see our hotel on the upper left-hand corner. I never did take a picture of it. I'm probably going to do a video on Salt Lake City separately, as well as on our trip visit to the Great Salt Lake. But you'll see a lot of Salt Lake City in this video from the light rail train going over to the train. So here's the transit system. It's a big system, covers a lot of area, goes out to the airport. There's 3 different light rail lines, different colors, red, green, and blue. And in the downtown area, it's free. So I got on at the courthouse station in the southern end of downtown on the blue line. And I took it north up Main Street and then west by the Mormon Temple complex. And it kind of meanders down past other main things to the train station. So I got on the train and I got on at the courthouse station, and I just thought this was neat that This is a symbol for the legal system at Courthouse Station. And as we were going along, this is a shot of the old Union Pacific station, which used to be one of two large old train stations, and I'll show the other one. This is no longer used as a train station. It's built into a commercial complex, and I think they're doing renovation work to it. But it's a beautiful old building. And here's the other station near that Union Pacific station and near where the final stop is on this blue line that takes you to the Amtrak station. This is the Rio Grande station, also another beautiful structure, unfortunately no longer used as a train station. I don't know what they use it for now. And this is all that you get in Salt Lake City for an Amtrak station. It's kind of a trailer-like looking building at one end of a fairly well-organized transit complex. I'll show you more. And as I mentioned, the train times also, if you're wanting to go to Denver, which might be the other large city in proximity to Salt Lake City, it's 15 hours away. And the train doesn't go to Boise, so that's out of the picture unless you want to drive or fly. So one of the problems with the train getting there so late is if it's arriving on time going west, if you wanted to make a connection to the tracks system, you better hope it's on time and you've got 9 minutes to go over. It's a short walk, but hopefully it'll wait for you, because if you miss that train, then there are no more trains on the track system. And this is the overall hub of the connections. This is looking out from the light rail train, and that's a front runner commuter train across the plaza. And as I will remark in the video, they give good directions. One way to the Amtrak, then you know which way to go to the front runner, and we are on the tracks train. So around the station, it's what you might expect in a lot of areas. It's kind of light industrial, not much to look at, and very close by is the old Rio Grande station. But what you can't help noticing are all the homeless people that are camped out in front of the Rio Grande and up and down other streets, and you'll see more of that in the video part of this. So it's really something, it's a fair amount of it. It's not like I'm highlighting a few localized spots, and there's just more of it. So I think Salt Lake City is doing like a lot of Western cities. They're looking to California for any solutions to the homeless problem, but what California is suffering from and doesn't seem to be able to dig their way out of is affecting a lot of other Western cities. So we expected to see this. You see it in other videos. One of my favorite YouTubers, Nick Johnson, covers the homeless situation in Salt Lake City. He was there like a month or two after we were there in May. So let me show you the light rail system to the Salt Lake City train station and the highs and lows in between. At one of the downtown tracks line stops, and I'm going to take the train to Salt Lake Central Station. Here's a green line going southbound.
Exit here for Red Line trains to the University of Utah.
The thing I've noticed just walking around downtown a little bit is that these trains move, they don't fool around. So it reminds me of Europe. I like that. Alright, I'll wait till we get on the train. Here's a quick look at the interior of the train. Fair amount of riders for early on a Saturday morning. I just took this Trax train blue line from Courthouse Station in downtown, and we're at the end of the line at the Salt Lake Central Station. And I see some of these guys got off the train and are walking over this way to get on a front runner train, I guess. So got to see a lot of the highs and lows of Salt Lake City on the train ride over here. We're like on the west side of downtown. So I'll show you where I went. I came up from Courthouse, and then the train went around like this, and we're over here somewhere, Salt Lake Central. So just right up and around right here. But you can see it's a huge system. Pretty well organized, I'd say. It's free in the downtown area. So, just like at Provo, we've got sort of one station for the front runner system, and you can see here by the the street sign type signs, Amtrak is down this way. One thing I noticed about the transit system is they're very good about telling, or about the city in general, they're very good about telling you which way things are and keeping it simple. So this is the Amtrak station, and we went by a couple of, and I could see the hotel where we're staying through the buildings there. So I could have walked over here, but I wanted to ride this system. And this is the Amtrak part of the station. It looks like a temporary structure, but I was going to start to say that we went by a couple of old historic train stations where there are no tracks anymore, and they're both attractive. So I'll take a look at least one of them on the way back. We'll have to walk down here to this end and then get on the walk back up into the Center Island platform. And as I've mentioned earlier, guys moving the scooters. They have a bike share system here and a scooter share system. But as I was mentioning earlier, the trains in Utah tend not to stop at regular hours, but that's especially the case with Salt Lake City. One train going one direction stops here at like 11 at night. Here you can see the daily station hours, 10 p.m. to 4:30 a.m. That's the only time it's open. And there's a utilitarian little seating area in this utilitarian looking building. And the other train going the other direction stops like 3 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning. And I'm looking for the platform. I guess they use, let me just walk around the building on this side. I want to make sure. I thought maybe they would use the front runner tracks, because on this side it's the end of the line of the light rail. Yeah, so they must use the front runner tracks. Here's the tracks system. So yeah, really basic, relegated to one end of this transit complex here in Salt Lake City. The other thing I'll mention, I don't know if I'll do a whole separate video on downtown Salt Lake City, but I know they're trying to keep a handle on it, but there's a fairly large homeless population here. And especially over here by the station, see people with really crude camping situations. Okay, so the front runner train is pulling out going north up to Ogden, Utah. So we get to see a little train action. All right, well, that's the whole system, and there's a huge bus complex. I don't know whether that's where people actually get on the buses or they just store them. There are a lot of tracks here. So I guess the freight runs through here also. So it's like the Salt Lake City Yards area. I don't know what they officially call it. Here in Salt Lake City, where the three systems meet: Front Runner, Tracks, and Amtrak. There's a Front Runner train heading south for Provo. Standard 3-car length bi-level car train with an engine. Taking one last look, I don't think Amtrak has its own separate platform. Don't know where else they would use. So it'd be good if they could share. And my Blue Line train is about to take off, going back to our hotel. The other thing I'll mention about Amtrak trains arriving.
Welcome aboard. This train will be leaving shortly. This is a Blue Line train to Draper.
Since Amtrak trains arrive here so late, there's not a great connection with the transit system. It's really too late to take a front runner train, or the Tracks trains here, they run till like 10:30 at night. So in one direction you could take a Tracks train here and then wait for your train. Hopefully it's on time. So anyway, all right, let's look at a little street action as you go north out of the station here. We're gonna go north and east, and I'll get off in a couple of stops to show the historic train stations that are no longer used, unfortunately. The only person who's not sleeping on this car right now.
Next station,
Greyhound bus.
Old Greek Town. Second south. See something? Say something. Call 801-287-EYES or text UTA TIP to 274637, followed by your tip information.
Yeah, so here's some of the little homeless encampments right by the station. I think they need a couple more developments around here to take up that space. There's one under construction. You see some construction workers here. There's a lot of construction going on in downtown Salt Lake City. out here is kind of serpentine, but we're heading east now towards the downtown area. I just thought this was a cool looking Chinese restaurant. I don't know if it's still in business, but it's the way they used to look and the way
Old
that one looks.
Greektown, second south.
So here's some new construction going on here. One of several projects that I've seen. Another project over here. Fairly large homeless population there. That's in DePaul Center, like a shelter. A lot of people hanging out here on the sidewalk. It's too bad. More construction.
Planetarium, northwest.
And then the main old train station here is built into this huge commercial slash office slash residential complex called the Gateway Center. So we'll get off the train up here and take a look at that.
Next station, Arena, third west South Temple. Transfer to Green Line trains to Salt Lake International Airport at Arena.
Showing you the whole length of the Gateway project, and here's a crane here right behind the old train station here, Union Pacific. Maybe I won't get off the train, I'll just show it to you from the train. But beautiful old station. I also saw like a Rio Grande station here. Too bad that's not the current station, but at least the building still stands and is being used. So here's the Arena.
Arena, third west South Temple. Exit here for Green Line trains to the airport.
Delta Center, where the Utah Jazz play. And I like the way they call it just the Arena stop, because these places, they keep changing names, although I think that it's been the Delta Center for a long time, if not since its inception. So the Utah Jazz used to be a hot ticket in town. They used to be really good. Karl Malone. Doors are closing. There's various nice hotels downtown. There's a Hyatt Regency and a Radisson, and we're staying at
Next station, Temple
a really
Square,
nice hotel.
150 west South Temple. Train start and stop.
On the last day of our vacation. The hills to the north of downtown. There's the Radisson Hotel. So it's nice that the hotels are on the light rail system. I could just come out of my hotel and just hop over to it. We're staying at the Grand America Hotel. Beautiful.
Temple Square, 150 West South Temple.
Since I got plenty of room, I can go on both sides of the car here to show you. Oh, there are buses. It's like 8:20 on a Saturday morning. Like a lot of the days here in Utah that we've had, it's clear in the morning, just like out east where we live in the New York area. It will be clear in the morning and then it'll cloud up in the afternoon. And that's when you have your greatest chance of rain. There's some prediction of rain. And like this looks like a high-end apartment building with balconies. Sure it is. And so this must be Symphony Hall, where the Utah Symphony plays.
Next station, City Center. See something? Say something. Call 801-287-5.
Historic Mormon
or text
Church.
tip to 274-637, followed by your tip information.
Or construction cranes. Beautiful old building here as we're going east. And then turning south. Sorry about the sun glare. We're trying to see Joseph Smith Memorial Building. So is that residential or is it offices? And then you've got commercial district. Macy's is in an old historic store. H&M is across the block.
City Center, first south.
Some people sleep running out on the sidewalk, fortunately. The McIntyre building. So they have shelters here in Salt Lake City, but it's never enough. Always seems to be greater demand than the supply. As regular people try to lead a normal
Next station,
city life.
further south. Be considerate of others. Remember, this is shared space.
Nice old historic buildings. The Beehive Pub. There's a building that's being demolished. Yesterday afternoon, so it was right at the start of the Memorial Day weekend, so people were really streaming out of the city. So we haven't really seen downtown Salt Lake City on a normal weekday. We won't, because we'll be leaving tomorrow on a Sunday.
So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.